Hello and welcome to my home. Today I'm going to talk to you about growing Brussels sprouts for your fall harvest. It's not hard, it's easy to do. I'll show you the steps. But before we go there, I want to let you know I have other types of videos on my channel. I have easy to prepare recipes, product reviews, meditation videos, and other container garden videos. So come on, let's get started growing those Brussels sprouts. I'm planting the Long Island Brussels sprouts, and I got 2 rows started already in my this is my largest container. It's a 3x3. It has a bottom to it, and you see the little seedlings coming up. So there's a couple of things to consider when you're planting your Brussels sprouts for the fall. Container size, the potting mix, fertilizer, and of course the sun and watering, and we're going to get to all that. So if you don't have a container this size, it's not a problem. All you need is a container. If you want to grow one Brussels sprout, is one that's 5 gallons and it has to be 12 inches across to give it enough room to grow. If you have a bigger container, maybe one that holds 15 gallons, you can plant 2 Brussels sprouts in there. But let me show you what I'm talking about. It's a pretty wide container. I'm going to say it's at least 12 inches wide. You also need a container that's 12 inches deep to give it enough room to grow all those roots, to bring up all those beautiful Brussels sprouts. Also, your container, if it's like a regular plastic or clay pot, it needs to have drain holes. It's important for drainage. Even though your Brussels sprouts like moist soil, it doesn't want its roots sitting in a lot of water. So the potting mix that I use is Miracle Grow potting mix. There are other brands out there. You do not want to use topsoil. You do not want to use soil from your garden. You need a mixture specifically formulated for your pots, and that's why it's called potting mix. Now for this pot, I had used this previously for some other vegetables that I planted during the summer. So I've amended the soil with some more potting mix because obviously the previous plant ate up a lot of the nutrients in there. So I did reuse some of that old potting mix, but I refreshed it and I added fertilizer. Now for your Brussels sprouts, you want to use an all-purpose fertilizer like a 10-10-10 or 5-5-5 fertilizer, one that says basically for all vegetables. An important thing to consider with planting your Brussels sprouts is the timing. Now, Brussels sprouts can take from 80 to 100 days to maturity depending on the variety that you are planting. But basically, Brussels sprouts grow best between 45 and 80 degrees. So you need to look at how many days do you have in that range. So for example, I'm planting Brussels sprouts that are going to take about 100 days to mature. So I need to look back and see, based on the weather patterns in my area, are the temperatures falling between 45 and 80 degrees for the next 100 days. So September, October, November, I know from my area that range is achievable, so I can get my Brussels sprouts off and going and growing in the right weather conditions. So that's important. Also, Brussels sprouts can take 5 to even 20 days to germinate, so consider that in your timing as far as the amount of time it'll take to get your Brussels sprouts to maturity. So one of the conventional wisdoms is that you start your seeds about 8 to 10 weeks before your fall frost date. But I like looking at the temperature range for my area, and you can do that by either going to online and going to the weather for your area. Just Google your state and say weather trends, and you can look to see what the average temperature is for September, October, November, and so on, and that'll give you an idea if you have the number of days needed for the Brussels sprouts. So I may not have mentioned this before, but you're going to plant your seeds about a 1/2 inch deep and about 3 to 4 inches apart, and you're going to thin them out Brussels sprouts need, again, about 12-14 so inches between them, because they are going to get rather large and need that room to produce well. Watering is not complicated. Basically, Brussels sprouts, like many vegetable plants, do not want to have its roots sitting in water. So having those drain holes in your pots are necessary, but to check to see whether you need to water your plants, you can do the old 1-inch rule. So take your finger and poke it into the soil. If it feels damp, you don't need to water. If it's bone dry, you need to water your plants. And then conversely, don't let your Brussels sprouts dry out completely, because if the plant and the little Brussels sprouts shrivel up, it's going to damage them, and you're not going to have, you know, the vegetables that you really want to eat. So pruning. Now, I'm not a big pruner, but Brussels sprouts, you do have. Now, I want you to pretend this is the Brussels sprout plant. I know, looking kind of brown, but this is the Brussels sprout. And you're going to have the main stem, and then you're going to have the leaves coming out. In between here, the Brussels sprout is going to form. To give that Brussels sprout optimal opportunity to grow, you're going to trim off that stem so that Brussels sprout will grow out here, and you're going to have all these leaves doing the same thing, and you're going to prune it the same way. And you start pruning from the bottom. Don't prune them all off at once. You're only going to prune them as the little Brussels sprouts appear, and you should always leave some leaves at the top so that it has you know, photosynthesis, if I can say that word, can happen. So that's where the little Brussels sprout in each little joint is going to be growing. Now, your Brussels sprouts are going to be on these stalks, but the stalks are not strong enough to support itself, so you will have to trellis it. You don't need, you know, super long trellises. About 4 feet tall should do well for trellising your Brussels sprouts. You can use shorter tomato stakes. You can use bamboo type poles. All of that will work to keep them upright and growing. Okay, let's go plant some Brussels sprouts. Come on, let's go. Now you notice I'm making a row, and my other two are in these rows or hills. So I'm just building my last third hill here. And then I'm just going to make a line in the soil, about a 1/2 inch line deep in the soil. So that's what the seeds look like. They're kind of on the small side. So here I go. So I have my 3 rows, and I'm going to end up thinning these out like I said before, because they do need about 12 inches up between plants. So I'm going to end up taking some out of here and putting them in my larger plant that I'm reserving. If you can see that white pot back there, and I have another white pot further behind it with that tomato plant that's getting to be on this last leg. So I hope to have 4 in here and 1 in each of those white pots. And that's it. It's not complicated. It's super simple. You just have to know the timing, the soil, container size, temperatures, and things that we discussed, and you're on your way to a nice fall harvest. And I'll also do a video when I'm actually harvesting, and of course I'll do one where I'm cooking the Brussels sprouts as well. Okay, if you like that video, hit the thumbs up like button, and consider subscribing to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when I've uploaded a new video. That's it for now. Bye bye.